Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Welcome, survivors. This is Eerie Knight of the Pseudoposse, and welcome to a second rendition of no cheese base builds. This time, I opted to build a melee-only, no-cheese base, one that could also be used for multiplayer. In all of my previous melee-only builds, I use some level of cheese to filter out a percentage of zombies from reaching me, so that I don't get overwhelmed. That cheese usually takes the form of some zombie dropper shape like the pole 4-way or the pillar 0.0125 meter centered, to name a couple. These shapes drop a number of zombies, but not all, so that some will reach you to give you all that melee action. This is important late game, as melee damage drops off considerably relative to guns, so you need that extra help. All of that is to say, there is none of that here. No zombie drops, no elevated base with a zombie pathing loop. Actually, I thought it would be rather nice to do the opposite, an underground base. And what could be better than an underground bunker style melee base? That's a rhetorical question. Obviously, it's awesome. This video will be split into two parts. The first is the basic premise, the concept of the build, and the second part is the build guide with a bit of testing. Let's begin. The premise is quite simple. Since we cannot rely on cheese to prevent the Horde from overwhelming us, we need some good old-fashioned brute force. And what better than the deadly combo of electric fence posts, dart traps, and blade traps? Because blade traps are so damn fragile, they are placed directly in front of our melee position, allowing us to repair them in between our melee swings. Placing any more further back would be an utter waste of resources, so two is all we have. To ensure they have a fighting chance, electric fence posts are absolutely necessary, as the stun will prevent the blade traps from taking extra damage from zombie hits. And depending on your game stage, the extra DPS provided by dart traps can be quite helpful. Earlier on, you can easily get away with just blade traps, but if you feel you are getting a bit overwhelmed, add these bad boys. Since you won't be using bullets, molotovs, or grenades during the Horde, you can easily keep up the production of darts. So between you, potentially a friend if you have one, and all the electric defenses, you can grind that Horde down easily. Now let's give a quick tour of the place. Starting from the main fighting room, we've got some storage in the back, our generators to power all of our lovely traps and lights. And on this side, easy access to electric fence posts. This corner staircase here is used to allow easier access to repair the rear fence post. Not much else inside here, though if you wanted, you could easily build your home, all your crafting stations, and whatnot below this area. Speaking of below, we can head down, not to a livable space, but to an access tunnel. This is how we get inside the fighting position. Down the ladder, through the hallways, up the second ladder, and out on the other side of the tunnel. If we head towards this direction, we can see our fighting position from the other side. Hello! One very important feature here is the design of the tunnel. Notice how the stairs go down and then back up again. This prevents direct line of sight to me, and more importantly the blade traps, until you reach the bottom. The idea of this is to block cop line of sight till they get too close for spitting, or at the very least get close enough for only a spit or two before closing the distance. Moving on, if we head toward the opposite direction, there are two exits. One leads to a ladder and a tunnel that exits to the mountainside, and the other leads to some stairs and the outer entrance to the bunker. The reason for the two paths is I was especially greedy. What do I mean by that? Well, as anyone who has played this game long enough, we all remember a time in which zombies didn't dig and underground bases were OP as hell. Ah, the good old days. And ever since zombies could dig, that made underground bases much more vulnerable, as zombies will happily tunnel to you. In fact, they prefer it. So to build a base like this becomes a challenge in combating the zombie tunnelers. Not only that, since zombies spawn usually about 35 to 50 blocks or so away from the player during the Horde, if the path from your fighting position to the entrance is much longer than that, like my path from the bunker entrance to my blade traps, that means zombies will spawn far from the entrance, making it even more likely they will try to tunnel to you, as they see the path down to the mountainside to the entrance into the tunnels as way too long. All of that is to say, if building a sprawling underground base, the longer the underground path, the harder it is to protect it. The most efficient way to make an underground base is to make everything vertical, the zombie path down within the footprint of the base underneath. This is not that. I wanted to push the limits and see what it would take to build an underground bunker that isn't just a long vertical shaft, potentially down to bedrock. I wanted to build a base that went deep into the mountainside, and most importantly, find out what it would take to prevent zombies from digging straight straight to me, and the results were pretty nuts. Ultimately, the second path was required to make this work, and the approach before that was rapidly turning into the realm of complete ridiculousness, even for me, and impossible to build base in an actual playthrough. As I step through the building guide and testing, I'll point out all the nuances of those approaches, as well as show how to build the base as is. And if I wanted to build a more optimal version that would save a ton of materials and time relative to the final version of this base, where I would have put the fighting position in that optimal build instead. Okay, first step is rather obvious: locate a mountain. Once located, find whatever region suits you most and construct a 7-block wide floor up against the mountainside using cube blocks. The circular portion of our bunker flush up against the dirt will be constructed using the cube 7-meter round family of shapes, which comprise of 5 total shapes. At 4 blocks above the floor, place your cube 7-meter O3 shape in the middle. From there, place the O2 and the O1 shapes to the left. On the right, place the O4 and O5 shapes. You'll repeat this pattern vertically next. On the right, where we place the O5 shape on top, start with the O1 shape placed vertically, and from there, place the O2 and O3 at the bottom. On the left side, start with the O1 shape and subsequently place O5 and O4. For our narrower round shapes, we will switch to the cube 1/4 7-meter round family of shapes. Again, start with the O3 in the middle and build out 2 block lengths. Repeat this for every other shape, following the same numerical pattern with O4 on the left, followed by O5. We'll need some extra support to continue, so place a ramp tip in the corners and support with cube half shapes. Once we've got that on both sides, we can continue to finish our outer bunker by following the numerical order of the cube 1/4 7-meter round shapes, same as we did previously. Next, we're going to create a 7-block long by 5-block wide tunnel surrounded by cube shapes. You could make this shorter or outright eliminate it and cut straight to the stair section, but I'll leave that decision up to you all. If you decide to proceed with this section, place the same ramp tips and cube half supports along the wall. Leave 2 block gaps in between supports. These aren't necessary for structural integrity. It is more an aesthetic thing, though extra supports are never a bad thing. This next part is a bit tedious, and doing it without the dev wrench will take quite some time, but you'll want to start digging downward and forward, decreasing the block depth by 1 as you move forward by 1. This will allow you to create the stairs, and to make our stairs look a bit more aesthetic, place 2 stairs filled shapes on either end, and in the middle, ramps. Rotate ramps for the roof to give a nice sloped surface. The length of this set of stairs will highly depend on how deep you are willing to go. Ultimately, I decided to go with about 30 steps. Now, if I wanted not to be greedy and push the limits of building underground horizontally, I would have stopped there, or maybe gone about 20 to 25 steps down into the ground. And instead of the next straight tunnel section in this build, I would have cut directly to the upper stair section leading to blade traps and the fighting position. This would have placed our overall distance from the main entrance between 30 to 40 block lengths. Doing this would eliminate the need for extra zombie path, saving the materials there, as well as saving materials for building deeper into the mountain, which in total is probably close to about 1,000 blocks, give or take. If, however, you are greedy as hell and don't mind hours of digging and placing blocks and want to go further, then by all means dig out a roughly 26 block long corridor. Good luck. My problem was that I really liked the decorative columns up top and wanted more of them. Undone by beauty once again. And like before, leave a 2-block wide space in between the ramp tip cube half supports. At the end of the corridor, make a 6-block wide opening from which we will construct a short set of stairs downward. I accidentally did 5 because I'm an idiot and didn't plan that I'd need 6 blocks for 2 blade traps, but I wanted to make an opening right up against the ramp tip cube half support. Aesthetic strike again. At the end of the stairs, make an additional 5-block length straight section. If you smartly took my advice earlier and built off the long staircase directly, you should build this 5-length tunnel where we built this unnecessarily long 26-block tunnel. From this short tunnel, build a set of stairs 2 blocks high. Make sure not to extend the ramp roof all the way to the end. Leave a 3-block wide by 2-block high gap for the blade traps. Insert 2 pillar 1-meter shapes and a blade trap below those. For the other electric traps, we'll use the classic dart trap electric fence post tripwire setup. Plop down dart traps 2 high and arrow slits in front to protect them while allowing darts to pass through. Make some additional room behind the dart traps and place an electric fence post and a tripwire. Build another stack adjacent to it and an additional stack of 2 adjacent but 1 block lower as it is on the lower stairs. Repeat the exact same setup on the other side. If you are short on materials and only can craft a few dart traps to start, prioritize the ones closer to the fighting position and expand further down as you are able. Here's how it's wired. From one tripwire, connect the other. From the second tripwire, connect to the electric fence post, and from that fence post, connect to the fence post on the left side. This one will be the post that takes damage as it shocks zombies. And finally, from the same tripwire that we connected the electric fence post from, we will connect each dart trap directly. This way, if any dart trap is destroyed, all the others will still work. From our fighting position behind the blade traps, give us a place to stand by positioning a row of cubes straight across. On the other end, place stairs filled corner shapes so we can easily reach the rear electric fence post to repair during the horde. Next, place 3 cubes on either side, and adjacent to these, plop down a stairs filled inside corner. Fill in the straight sections with the stairs filled shape and close the gaps with the stairs filled diagonal too. If you want to add a bit of storage, give yourself a 2x3 or 4x3 region within the wall. Place down your storage, some generators, add some cube facades on the side, and some switches for all the electric stuff. I never directly connect from generator to electric device. To maintain our motif, add the same ramp tip cube half supports along the back wall. It was at this point I realized I didn't center my storage unit. Yuck. So I expanded it to the 4x3 region so it fit nicely between my supports. Because we are about to block off the fighting position from the rest of the tunnel with scaffolding ladder, we need a way inside and back out. From inside the long tunnel, dig down and over towards the main base. Line it with cubes and place ladders on either end. Make sure this tunnel goes underneath everything. Otherwise, zombies might try to access it by digging through to it if the tunnel is on the side or above. Finally, place down the scaffolding ladder across the blade traps to block zombies from reaching you while allowing you to melee through the bars. So how does this base without zombie path leading into the long tunnel fare? Not well. Zombies dig down towards the main base directly, despite it taking them much longer than running the extra distance they decide to dig. Naturally, the obvious solution would be to reinforce the barriers around the main base and tunnels to force zombies to go along the path, which we had to do with the final design anyhow. Several additional concrete layers were added to deter zombies from digging even with the extra zombie path. But what would it take to make zombies run an extremely long route through the main bunker entrance rather than dig? Turns out, way too much. See, these zombies digging? That is despite a roughly 15 block or so steel, and I repeat, steel, deep foundation around the main base, with about 10 blocks or so of steel around the other tunnels. Furthermore, adding a large barricade directly below the dig side, again, made of steel, did nothing to deter them from digging. Seriously, these guys would rather dig all night than run a bit further down the hill and go the easy way. Unbelievably stubborn. Whenever I have discussed zombies' propensity to follow the path of least resistance, this totally breaks that notion. The zombie AI must have a massive weight to dig when it comes to their pathing determination, even if it takes much longer. Too much, I think. Ultimately, it would be possible to eventually stop them from digging, but not before you convert half the mountainside to steel, which is utterly ridiculous. So there is definitely a limit of how deep you can go if you don't build perfectly vertical down to the ground, which is why I recommended multiple times to not build as deep into the mountain as I did. I'd say you want your main fighting position about 30 to 40 blocks from the entrance at a maximum. The deeper you go, the thicker you'll need to make the walls around your underground base and potentially add a shorter, more direct path like I ended up having to do to make the design work. I hope you all took something away from this video. And if you did, consider dropping a like for the algorithm and subscribing to the channel if you are among the 90% or so of the viewers who are not subscribed. And tap the bell for notifications while you're at it so you don't miss the next video. Shout out to our awesome Patreon members. Thank you all so much for your generosity. On that note, this is Eerie Knight signing off. See you all in the next one.